Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton, here with Brandon. Day 4 of the Weiss Schwarz Invitationals in the books. Our first multi-game day today. We had 3 games. Unfortunately, due to extenuating circumstances, I was only kind of sort of available today. So I'm going to let Brandon handle most of the actual gameplay discussion, and I'll just kind of chime in here and there. But yeah, Brandon, busy day today.
Oh, absolutely. 3 games happened today. Starting off, we had Riaz and Vince, SAO and Goblin Slayer. This went pretty quick. Riaz was able to get the win here, a 2-0 win. Essentially, he would start off pushing for damage early and just kind of keep that momentum going throughout the whole game, building up stock along the way. He was very well set and very well prepared for the deck and the gameplay. Vince, on the other hand, was having issues with climaxes in hand, triggering climaxes. When standbys would come into play, especially early, the standby targets that were available were not big enough to be able to overcome the level 1s that Riaz had by that point. Riaz essentially would raise himself up early to be able to swing bigger for the win. The first game, they were kind of back and forth regarding like damage output. Just nobody was really canceling that game. But game 2, Riaz actually got a lot of his early plays clocked when he hit level 2, but Vince basically had no stock, so he wasn't able to pull out a lot of the cards that he would want to play, especially with a really stock-heavy end game with the Dwarf Shaman. It very much leaned into SAO Alicization for the win.
Yeah, it's hard to stop a world champion when he's high rolling. So Vince was going to be up against it no matter what. I think there are a couple of things worth mentioning here. One, I think that Riaz's choice of deck is really interesting. Obviously, he's been famous for being the AOT player over the past few seasons, and pivoting over towards Alicization upon its release, he seemed to be excited about it. I remember he was talking about it on the Burn 1 podcast about how he thought this was a really viable set, and tri-fielded his level 3 in game 1. But I think across the table, like you said, Vince was triggering his climaxes early, his standby climaxes early, which is already not ideal, but he doesn't even have a real level 1 standby target in his list. So when he triggers a standby at level 0, he has to go and get a utility piece or just whatever undersized 1/0 just happens to be in his waiting room. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think this is a particularly surprising result. Yellow Goblin Slayer isn't really the main Goblin Slayer list. As much as we didn't really get to see the level 3 Lizard Priest Dwarf Shaman game, it's probably not as consistent of a build as the Priestess build. I do think, however, that Riaz has an opportunity here to really open up the conversation as far as Alicization is concerned, and whether or not it is a world's level meta viable deck. So far, so good for him, but he will have an interesting matchup in the second round, which we will get to in a second. But moving on, second game of the day, Cardcaptor Sakura taking on the Priestess Goblin Slayer.
Absolutely. In this game, Davide was able to pull off the win here, 2-1 for Cardcaptor Sakura, which was really interesting games to watch, especially because I think this was one of the more well-balanced games that we've seen so far. That it was very close, each game that was played. Game 1, Davide was able to get up early, essentially a very similar style to what the previous game was. Whoever kind of got up the level first was able to kind of hold board for a little bit of time. So it was kind of going back and forth as to what was going on there. At one point, both players had reached about 2-1, 2-2, with refreshing at about the same time with 6 climaxes each. Relatively close game, really low stock counts for this game. And I think that actually played into Cardcaptor Sakura's favor, because I think Cardcaptor Sakura is a little bit more familiar with low stock counts, whereas Priestess really wants to have stock in order to be able to do well. It also helped that Davide was able to cancel three times on 4 attacks, or 4 swings, including the Musashi, to be able to then the next turn swing for game. Game 2, Matthew was able to get the Priestesses out that turn. The previous game, nobody got to play the high-end climax combo for either of the decks for the first game. The second game, Matthew was able to, being able to neg soul, survive an additional turn, and then taking advantage of poor compression, able to dish out 8 straight for Cardcaptor to lose the game. Tied 1-1, they go into the last game. Matthew's able to triple field Goblin Slayer, but triggering things at the wrong time. Davide's able to turn around and clear the field right after that. So it just kind of back and forth throughout this game. Goblin Slayer at one point is about 1 level down from Cardcaptor at 2-6 to 1-6. And realistically, Davide is actually able to take advantage of that because Matthew stays at 1-6, Priestesses don't come on a field, and Cardcaptor is able to take advantage of that time. And even in the end game is hitting for exact damage to win in a very compressed deck. In the last round, Matthew was, what did we say?
4 out of 14, something like that. And he canceled once in his top 8 cards, 8 exact damage and died. Ended up with 3 climaxes left in his deck after eating exact damage. Obviously a tough way to lose. Strategically, I think he made the right decision.
Yes.
Sitting at, I think he was at 3-1, swinging into Cardcaptor at 3-0, knowing what his compression was at, opting to essentially bet on his own compression, buying him another turn. Probably the right play, but, Weiss is strictly a game of skill. And
when you skillfully hit for exact damage...
Yeah, exactly. When you skillfully avoid all of your opponent's climaxes in a well-compressed deck, that's just, that's just how the game goes. But yeah, as you said, really close game, really good matchup. I think that Cardcaptor Sakura on the whole doesn't get enough love. And obviously, Davide has clearly established himself as, the world's premier Cardcaptor player, piloted, very similar list to winning the Rome Regional, took this to top 4 at Worlds last year. Really the only player who's playing Cardcaptor Sakura in the Worlds meta at this point, and having a lot of success with it. And I think that he's demonstrating that this deck is better than a lot of people give it credit for. And I think obviously a lot of that strength comes from the level 3 Reflect that neg souls, prevents burn damage, does damage when your opponent attacks. It's such a good card. There isn't a ton of great support around it, but I think that card alone justifies building Cardcaptor Sakura and the presence of Cardcaptor in the World's meta. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see much more of it going forward. I don't think a lot of people are, I think most people like other things better, but and I think the level 3 Reflect is probably one of the most underrated cards in all of the English meta, personally. It's unfortunate that it doesn't have better support around it, because I think this card is really impressive.
So as we enter into the third game of the day, this game did not see a stream yet, although it has been recorded and will likely air in the future. I did talk with Jack and Sven, because those were the 2 that played today. Sven took the matchup 2-0 with his SAO deck, the Yuki Sinon Last Shot, versus Jack's Goblin Slayer Priestess build, and Coco. Jack and Coco.
I mean, realistically, we all know that's why Jack lost. He didn't let Coco play. Gotta let the Weiss cat play. Hashtag free the Weiss cat. In fairness to the rest of the field, I think Jack had to take up the mantle. And, good on Jack for recognizing that and, doing what is necessary to keep this tournament fair. So good on him.
Anyway, Jack fell behind early in both games. Cancels weren't really in his favor. I mean, especially the first game. He actually started out with 3 gate climaxes in his hand and 2 of the level 1 combo. It was not a great start. Ended up triggering 2 more. He essentially skipped level 1 both games. And if you skip a level, you fall behind. You can't catch up on resources, and it's very hard to win that way. Especially with a resource-heavy deck like Priestess, it's hard to be able to come back. On the other hand, Sven played his game. He keeping track of the correct cards, watching his opponent eat damage, but just making sure he was pushing damage each turn, and really was set to win. Especially early, his deck is very able to solitaire and use that benefit to be able to just stockpile resources, especially with one of the better level 1 combos in the game with the Yugi Gold Bar. You're just constantly getting resources into hand to be able to get on the field, to be able to play. And if your opponent is unable to get those resources, being able to take advantage of deck states, it lined up very, very well. But they did record it, and so we should be able to see it at a later date. But as we begin to look at the brackets, Colton, what do we see?
Well, we have our first official round 2 matchup set up. Sven and Riaz will play OG SAO versus Alicization. I'm looking forward to this one in part because it's, the testing grounds for Alicization. How does it do? Is Riaz right to play Alicization over OG SAO? So, should be an interesting matchup. Davide also moving on to the next round. So 6 players have been confirmed for round 2. And out of those 10 remaining first round games, 5 of them have dates and times. The next game on the schedule will be Joon and Coen, Batman Ninja KonoSuba. That game now at 2 a.m. We will be covering that game as part of tomorrow's video. Following that, Nando and Clinton, still 2:30 Eastern on ENTCG. Mauricio and Patrick now have their time. Love Live Sunshine taking on Fate. That game starting at 8 o'clock over on Burn 1. A couple of games scheduled for the weekend as well. Taya and Matt have their games scheduled for 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern on Saturday. Broderick and Ian's game also has a time, 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Again, all these times are Eastern. Those are the 5 games that are currently scheduled. We will update the description with any updated time and new stream announcements. Have a good one.
We'll see you next time.